Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a beer, it's time for some Path of Exile discussion. So with 3.15.2 just around the corner, possibly by the time that you're seeing this video, it's already live. There's a number of significant changes that are happening to Gwennen. Gwennen is the gamble NPC that was added in 3.15 that lets you buy an item with mods unseen. All you know is the item level and the base type when you commit to buying it, and this just uses her specific currencies. And then she gives you the item, which could be magic if you're unlucky, rare if you're, well, unlucky but slightly less unlucky, rare and an influenced item, rare and corrupted with 2 Val implicits, or it can be a unique. Now, there's a lot of different things that you can do with these, and I wanted to go through the bases that I think have the most promise to go for here. I'm going to reference rarity tiers a lot in this video. Now, a lot of the information that we as a community have on rarity tiers, because this is something that is very hard to determine empirically just how rare a specific unique item is. So a lot of this comes from the work that was done by the player PoorFishWife. And in last league, so during Ultimatum, she had the genius idea of scraping data from all of the Inscribed Ultimatums that upgraded uniques. So these would be the ones that might say, sacrifice an immortal flesh leather belt, and if you win the ultimatum encounter, you will receive a soul mantle. So she went through all of these and she noticed that they basically could be used to classify all of the uniques into into 6 tiers really. So there were 6 tiers. The 5th tier, tier 5, which was not appearing at all on Inscribed Ultimatums. Tier 4, which could be the thing you had to sacrifice, but would never be the reward. Tier 3, which would be the reward if you sacrificed a tier 4 unique. And tier 2, which would be the reward if you sacrificed a tier 3. Tier 1, which would be the reward if you sacrificed a tier 2. And then tier 0, which was only 2 items, Reefbane and Headhunter. So she parsed all of that data, did a whole lot of work to scrape it together and put together a spreadsheet. Link to that in the video description below, as well as to PoorFishWife's Reddit post summarizing all of this. Now, a couple of important caveats about this tier information. One, it's not guaranteed that it was correct in 3.14. And 2, it's not guaranteed that it's remained unchanged. However, it is the most comprehensive tiering of uniques we've ever had. It's also possible that Gwennen doesn't respect the rarity tiers of the relative rarity of unique items in game as well. So it might be, for instance, that Gwennen might have been programmed to give you a lot more Pyroshock clasps than would be expected for some reason, because the GGG devs decided to be a bit of a laugh. However, I've seen no real evidence that makes me think that's true. It might be, but I can't prove it's not. But I personally believe that Gwennen respects the rarity tiers of the uniques in the game, and that PoorFishWife's data is reasonably accurate. And I'm going to base my recommendations partly off that. So firstly, let's talk about the other thing that I think Fishwife might have gotten wrong. I think that her rarity tiers for jewels, I think she lists all jewels as 1 tier rarer than they actually are. So I believe that the ones she lists as tier 0 are actually tier 1, which would mean that Unnatural Instinct is the same rarity as Asenath's Gentle Touch. That matches my experience in game, but my sample size is tiny, so I'm not sure. That's just what I believe to be the case. So if you're a solo self-found player, I think the first thing you want to do is have a look at unique items that you might really like to get your hands on that are in the Drop Anywhere pool in the game. And once you've done that, you're going to want to work out what base they're on. So Soul Mantle is a Spider Silk Robe. Spider Silk Robes are minimum level 49. Let's say that you wanted a Soul Mantle for your build. You wanted to try out this popular build with Forbidden Rite Totems. And so you thought, all right, I'm going to try and get myself as many Spider Silk Robes as I possibly can in Gwennen's inventory. In order to do that, you would actually possibly want to consider leveling a second character to just past 49. You want to get to the point that Gwennen does not offer you anything under item level 49. And then at that point, every item in her inventory can be a Spider Silk Robe, but you won't have some of the higher item level bases, such as the Val Regalia. Val Regalias and the like are more common than Spider Silk Robes at endgame. And so that's going to mean that Gwennen will offer you more Val Regalias than she offers you Spider Silk Robes. There's also a whole lot of other things as well, like Saintly Chainmails and the like, that will also flood your recommendations there. So what I suggest you do is, if the item you're looking for is genuinely rare, then consider leveling a second character to just pass the level that the item becomes available at, and then burn all your Astragalis and try and hope to get yourself the item that you're chasing there. Now, tier 3 and down rarity, so tier 3, tier 4, and unlisted, which is tier 5 items, I think these should be pretty common from Gwennen. It seems to be that way. And when I say common, I mean, like, you know, you should realistically be able to get the one you want within 50 to 70 Astragalis. This is from watching all of the information that I can find about other people doing mass turn-ins with Gwennen in the past. So tier 3 and more common ones, I think you can count on getting in a reasonable time frame in solo self-found. However, if you're chasing a tier 1 or tier 2 item, you should expect to need considerable luck in order to get that. And if you're chasing a tier 0 unique, like Headhunter or Reefbane, well, Reefbane you can't get, but Headhunter, then you're not going to need luck, you're going to need a miracle. So that's my solo self-found tips there. Now let's turn over to the question of trade enabled. Because in trade, there's a couple of things that need to be said first. The very first thing is that you should look out for bases that are worth a lot by themselves. Most players don't realize, and actually this is the reason that these bases are worth something, is because people don't realize that they're worth something. But currently, item level 86 Supreme Spiked Shields are really worth something. So if we go to base types in POE.ninja and we type in Supreme, you will see here that Supreme Spiked Shields with no mods at all on them are currently at the shockingly high price of 50 Chaos for the base. This is definitely not going to last. This is the sort of thing that is going to close up really quickly. The reason that Supreme Spike Shields are so high is that for the critical strike version of Spectral Shield Throw, this is the best crafting base. The other base that's genuinely expensive at the moment is the Colossal Tower Shield. Not as expensive, and that's because people are aware that it's so good. But as we go to normal here, you'll see they're currently sitting around 11 Chaos per one. And where a lot of these prices can be a bit dubious, like Colossus Mallet, no one wants a Colossus Mallet for 10C. There's only 10 of them listed. Here, there's been a turnover of 2,000 Colossal Tower Shields at the 11.5 Chaos mark. So for that reason, that's a price that you can trust, as is the Supreme Spike Shield, where there's been 1,000 of them. So those are the two bases you should never pass up. That said, I do expect that within about 6 hours of this patch going live, assuming that people do farm those Supreme Spike Shields and Colossal Tower Shields at item level 86+, Gwennen is going to crater the market for these items. Absolutely crater it. So that's the first thing though, just check for bases that are valuable on their own. I do believe they're the only two that Gwennen offers that are worth anything at the moment. If I'm wrong, someone will point it out in the comments with their tips of other ones that are particularly sellable. And things like Hubris Circlets do always sell. Like item level 86+ Hubris Circlets do sell in bulk for 5 to 8 Chaos in most leagues. So that's something else that you can go for once the demand for Spike Shields, Supreme Spike Shields and Colossal Tower Shields starts to crater a bit. So what bases do I think you should try for? Firstly, if your character is low level at all, then you should only go for Silk Gloves. Just ignore everything else, but Silk Gloves have that very slim chance of being Asenath's Gentle Touch, and of all of the drop anywhere uniques that are not jewels, Asenath's Gentle Touch is the most valuable of them. So it's tier 1 rarity and it's currently 5 exalts, so you're not going to get these often. The reason that I don't mention this for high level characters is that Silk Gloves, like, you should always buy them when they're available from Gwennen, but they'll almost never be available because of that bias I was talking about, where things like Chagrin Gloves or Conjurer Gloves or Sorcerer Gloves are far, 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 far more common than Silk Gloves when you're starting to look at high character levels. The next base that you want to consider is the Leather Belt. Here we are simply shooting for the moon. So I'll just quickly bring up, here's the Asenath's Gentle Touch you're looking for, currently sitting at 5x. Here you're shooting for the moon. The only thing you're going to get is Headhunter, because everything else is rubbish. However, Headhunter is such a massive jackpot hit, sitting at 84 exalts at the moment in Trade League, that the slim chance of getting one is probably well worth taking up, even though everything that's not a headhunter is going to be trash. How do I know everything that's a headhunter that's not a headhunter is going to be trash? I had a look at the pricing of things like Shaper influenced leather belts, Elder influenced leather belts, with an item level of 86, and even those are pretty low, like they're under 10 chaos each. The reason that they're so cheap, again, is because people are already buying every leather belt that Gwennen sells, hoping to get a headhunter, and consequently, the market is just flooded with influenced leather belts. Next up is Viridian Jewels. So with Viridian Jewels, there are two massive hits. There is, at least according to my understanding, Tier 1 Rarity has Unnatural Instinct. This is even more valuable than Asenath's Gentle Touch. It's the most valuable Drop Anywhere unique in the game, and it is just something that is so powerful. It's always going to be expensive, it's always going to be good, and people are always going to want it. This is an incredibly powerful item, and is something that, just a slim chance of getting one is really worth your while. However, there is a bogey prize that is not really a bogey at all, and that is Intuitive Leap. So Intuitive Leap is considerably more common. It's a rarity tier more common than Unnatural Instinct. I personally believe that makes it 3 times as likely to get. I could be wrong on that front. So if I'm right and it's 3 times as likely, then you might find that you might be, say, 1 in 6,000 to get an Unnatural Instinct every time that you buy a Viridian Jewel off Gwennen, and might be 1 in 2,000 to get an Intuitive Leap every time you do so. That actually sort of adds up to a few Chaos Shards every time, and it might be more common than that as well, I don't know. You're sort of looking at already having an expected value of maybe a third of a Chaos just from the chances to get Unnatural Instinct and Intuitive Leap, but as well as that, you can also get a good rare jewel, or more likely than getting a good rare jewel is that you get a mediocre jewel that has a good Val implicit, or maybe that has 2 Val implicits on it, because all of those come up quite a bit with the jewels. So those are things to look for as well. I think Viridian Jewels have a lot of potential here. I don't think that the Cobalt and Crimson Jewels are anywhere near as good. The reason for that is that Cobalt Jewels, their Tier 1 unique is only around the Exalt mark, and likewise Crimson Jewels are a little bit lower as well. So that's the Tier 1 Rarity Jewels, and there's just nothing at Tier 2. I mean, I guess there's Fortress Covenant at Tier 2 in the Cobalt Jewels, which is okay, but the rest of the, you're starting to get quite a bit lower when you're looking down for the next jewel in value. So for that reason, I think save all of the jewel currencies for purposes of chasing down those Viridian Jewels. Lastly, we want to talk Amulets, and Amulets are in an interesting spot. So there is a very good unique amulet, Badge of the Brotherhood, which is the same rarity tier as Asenath's Gentle Touch, again, of course, assuming that PoorFishWife's work is all correct and still accurate. But Badge of the Brotherhood is both a really good item, and also the thing that's important with these is that if you shoot for a Badge of the Brotherhood and you happen to not get it, you've got a lot of possibilities for fallbacks that are good as well. So if you were to get a Hunter Influence item instead, a Hunter Influence Turquoise Amulet, that's actually worth something in Trade League. If you get a different influence, it's still okay. It's probably going to be worth a little bit less than if you got Hunter Influence, but there will be people that want that as well. And so with that in mind, I'm inclined to recommend taking a shot at Turquoise Amulets as long as the item level is 82 or higher. 82 is the breakpoint where a Hunter Amulet goes from being a trash item to a good item. And so that's where I suggest that you go with the Turquoise Amulets. Additionally, I think that for every other type of amulet, you might want to consider taking item level 86 ones that are offered. Uniques here are mostly actually going to be failures. Turquoise Amulet has an excellent unique item, but the rest of them generally don't. But what you're chasing here is influence bases. Even if the base that you get is terrible, so let's say that you you take a Coral Amulet from Gwennen, and she gives you a Hunter Influence Coral Amulet, and you're like, oh gee, such a good influence, such a good item slot, and such a terrible base. There's 2 ways to work around that. The first one is that you can use it as someone might use it as one part of an Awakener Orb craft, and so that would give it some utility. And the second way that it will be used is in conjunction with the Onyx Amulet recipe. If you vendor an amulet and 3 skill gems, 1 green, 1 blue, and 1 red. You will receive back an Onyx Amulet, and this will maintain the influence on the amulet that you vendor. You'll lose all of the mods on it. I believe that the item that comes back is Scoured, but you will you will be able to convert that Coral Amulet into an Onyx Amulet, which is a huge upgrade, and that's why Onyx Amulets are so widely available in trade leagues. So that is basically the extent of everything that I think is worth your while with Gwennen. I'm not aware of people reporting any jackpot hits on things like bows, the way that like ROG will be so good for crafting bows in 3.15.2. I'm not aware of anyone reporting, getting like a spectacularly well-rolled bow from Gwennen or anything along those lines. So I don't think there's much point in going for anything anything that has sockets in it, unless the item type has a really good unique on it. I really think it is just basically amulets. So it is all item level 86 amulets, Turquoise from 82 and up, Viridian Jewels, leather belts, silk gloves, and Supreme Spike Shields and Colossal Tower Shields for as long as the market for those holds up at item level 86. That's what I want to recommend you go for. But of course, if you've got your own comments and questions, definitely fire away below. May your Valorps have interesting results.